Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action this week. Hopefully, Dave's watched it all because I haven't. Do you
Sadly,
remember
yes.
Monday, Dave?
I actually do, yeah,
Yeah,
because it was a game which was kind of worth remembering a little
yeah.
bit. So yeah, I mean, it's a remarkably inconveniently scheduled game for the purposes of this.
It is, particularly as we recorded about half an hour before tip-off.
Yeah, and on top of that, you've then got to remember it after the 9 games that follow,
Yeah.
which isn't great. But yeah, it was a good game.
So let's start there. London Lions 109, Newcastle Eagles 106 after overtime. Decker was back and he was in the starting lineup. There's no Taylor, no Neighbour for Newcastle. Green and Whitfield with threes. Newcastle into an early 22-16 lead.
Yeah, it was a training session for Decker. I mean, he was back, but he was back in body. He wasn't really there in game or in spirit. You know, you could see it was a testing out situation. He played like 12 minutes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
in those 12 minutes, he missed a couple of layups that he's not going to miss it basically any other point in his career. Simply because he was just getting his legs back under him. Yeah, the game, the pleasing thing about this game for me was it was the first time that I've seen a team go in there and actually look like they thought they had a shot at winning and behave like they thought they had a shot at winning. What I mean by behave is not the fact that they made lots of shots, but that they were getting in the grill of London. They were being competitive with them, and you saw, there was clearly some talking going on as well. You saw Philip get a tweak. Philip was getting very unusually for him wound up, which means that something must have been said, which wasn't,
Yeah.
wasn't that. And it was almost like, the pleasing thing was that, as I say, from watching London's games against everybody else in the league, there has been just kind of a little bit of this is all a bit futile type about it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, and nobody's really, actually engaged them in a game with a level of physical competitiveness,
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
or just what it's like, an edgy game, and a
Yeah,
real,
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and ultimately, if you're the underdog, that's all you've got.
Yeah.
You can play. You're the underdog, and you can play to the overdog's rules, but the overdog's going to win. So you have to disrupt. You have to look to be awkward. You have to change, and that was the thing I took out of Newcastle, which kind of surprised me because they haven't really shown much of that this year
No,
so
no.
far. But then again, also, um, Matt Morgan, Newcastle did an awful job of defending him in the first half. His first two threes were off one pass, baseline inbound, and there was nobody anywhere near him.
Mm.
Either shooting over screens or failing to switch on screens or whatever. It was just horrible. And the problem is that when you give him three free ones,
Yeah, yeah. The other six
and
are
then
coming.
subsequently they gave him a couple more as well, to
They
be
did,
honest,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
where they got separated from his body. Then even when Newcastle went up 12 in the fourth quarter, I didn't really think that they were going to hold on because
Mm.
um,
Let's spin through to get to that.
yeah,
So Eagles led by as many as 8 in the second quarter, but Morgan, you touched on his threes that he got early on. London were ahead 52-47 just before half time. Eagles then a 10-0 run in the third quarter, 8 of them for Whitfield. They were 60-70 ahead. A couple of threes from Grantham trimmed it, but then they didn't score a field goal for 8 minutes.
yeah.
London.
And I thought there was a couple of things that happened in the game. One, if you do a snapshot of the timeouts, London's timeout in the second quarter at the end, where they're up by 4, whatever, and they're all smiling and joking, and they're quite relaxed and comfortable. And then you saw the timeout at the beginning of the fourth quarter, when actually, what's happened for the rest of the games in the BBL this year, which is we'll put the hammer down in the third quarter and the game is over. That hadn't happened, and you could see there was a little switch in their mentality, and a little bit of uneasiness about it. So that made a difference. Then, for the first time, I think this year, in the beginning of the fourth quarter, Coach Bozic pulled out the Sharma Olaseni lineup,
Yeah, yeah. I don't
which
remember
was
seeing that.
that was kind of the only real point at which I thought, oh, hang on, one, they're doing something, having to do something different here, and two, this actually probably plays into Newcastle's hands. Because I didn't think it was going to help them. If you put a new two big lineup together in the fourth quarter of a game when you're looking for something, then you lose 3 or 4 minutes figuring out, and that game can be gone. And they got that close. but those subs were always going to be coming in at the 6-7 minute mark in the fourth quarter. And
so at the 7 minute mark in the fourth quarter, it's 69-83 to the Eagles. And then Morgan hit 3 threes, Nelson hit 1-2, London on a 16-2 run in about 3.5 minutes, and it's tied at 85.
Well, they can do that. I mean, there's a couple of things. One, Newcastle took Defoe out, which I was surprised about because I thought he was holding them together with his defensive communication. That said, the scores that they got weren't because they really took Defoe out. They were because they didn't have the discipline to defend the 3-point line. And then a couple of times Morgan got open in transition. But the problem is he's made 5 or 6 already, so he's going to hit the transition once. And offensively, the Newcastle starting lineup is not being impactful. In the last few games, they've really been outplayed by basically everybody at the beginning of each half. And that lineup with, I think Green might have fouled out around them, but that lineup with, Delpeche and the guards, the 3 guards, has kind of struggled a bit to score the ball. They get a bit static. They start dribbling the ball a lot. And I thought London eventually picked up the defense. But it was Newcastle's giving up the early threes to Morgan that hurt them. But even then, when they got to 83-83, they didn't wash them out, which kind of went back and forwards.
So 2:30 to go. Green fouls Grantham on a long shot. 1 or 2 free throws, so it's 86-85. I'm not sure what happened at 1:52. I'm hoping you might be able to help me because I've watched it twice and I still haven't worked out. There's a collision between Johnson and Morgan, and then something happened off screen which involves some chatter between, I think, Philip and Austin. And then there's a big discussion between the referees. And at the end of the discussion, there's 2 free throws for Morgan. Live Stats has a foul on Delpeche, but Delpeche at the time of the whistle was under his own basket on his own, nowhere near anybody.
I can't help you. There was a couple of interesting things actually. I tweeted about one of them in this game about it was chippy, and there was an off-screen interaction at one point between, I think, Philip and Austin, and Philip already had it.
This is it.
This is the one.
This is the one, yeah.
Well, Phil, I thought there might be an earlier one as well. But anyway, Philip already had that. And the refs came together. And you hear one of the refs, actually, you don't hear, you lip read one of the refs saying, well, if we give double techs, Philip's gone. Because Philip already had either a tech or an unsportsmanlike.
Yeah.
And, the question I posited on Twitter, and I haven't really had a real answer yet from anybody who is that an appropriate characteristic to take into account? What's happened before when you decide whether something's a double technical or not. Because double technicals offset, nobody really cares. I don't like them, as you know.
No, you don't.
I couldn't see what happened. And by the way, I figured out that my annoyance last week with everything about what was going on in the league has actually been, I've actually managed to boil it down to the fact that I don't see everything anymore.
Okay.
That's it. I don't see, because because there are so many close-ups, there are so many shots of this, there are so many times the camera is on the wrong person when something else is going on. Whereas with the old wide-angle camera, even if the coverage wasn't as good, the closest weren't as good, you didn't see the beads of sweat, you can't hear what the refs are saying, you can't see the lip ring, you can see everything that's going on. And my eye is trained from doing years of this, obviously being a coach and all that stuff, to see everything that's going on all the time.
Yeah.
And that actually is I've decided that is actually.
To be fair, you're a fairly niche market.
I get that, and I was about to say that. I was about to say that I don't think they'll lose any sleep over that.
Yeah.
Okay, but it has had an impact upon my enjoyment of what we're seeing, because I can't see it all and I don't like that. So that's it. And certainly there's a couple of games this week where I'm afraid your directors have been too busy showing other stuff and missed multiple plays in the game, and they need to get better at that. And you can feed that message back if you like it, but there you go. We cannot have if you're not in the building, we cannot be missing inbounds plays because I'm watching the 4 shots I've just seen a guy make. Because someone's got a clever button to press to say, we can watch these 4 shots again. We need to watch the game, and we need to see the refs. We need to see everything. Anyway, so that's an aside there. But yeah, so I don't know whether they should or not. But anyway, I don't know what happened on that play either.
But the reason I asked, because the collision was between Johnson and Morgan, and Johnson was on 4 fouls, and Morgan shot free throws. So if Johnson fouled him, he would have been out of the game. And Delpeche didn't foul anybody. Delpeche was nowhere near anything.
I didn't have I don't know what the fouls were again, because no one's telling us. So I'm not bothered enough to be looking at the live start. So I didn't know that. But yeah, no, I don't know what happened. Sorry.
No. So anyway, Morgan goes to the free throw line, fouled apparently by Delpesh from 15 feet away, and probably more than that, 20 feet.
Heavy breather.
Yeah, he is. 1 for 2 from the free throw line, 87-87. 134 to go. McGill into the paint. Tough finish. That was a good finish.
Yeah.
87-89. Morgan then a 3 with 121 to go, put London ahead, 90-89. 108 to go. Johnson fouled on a 3-point shot. Not a great foul, I thought.
No, I think, was that Philip as well?
I think it was.
I think Philip at this point, his head was a bit. I don't know what had gone on because I've never seen him like that before. Now, when watching him play in the national team games, seen him play, around. He's always been the heady type of guy. But there's something that rankled with him because he was on the edge of being thrown out of that game on a couple of occasions.
The 3-3 throw, so it's 90-92. 49.1 seconds to go. Nice pass from Nelson to Olusheni. He fouled on a dunk. That was Green's 5th foul.
Yeah, right.
2 free throws, 92-92. At the other end, Newcastle missed a shot. Delpesh got an offensive rebound, but it didn't hit the ring, so there was no reset. Johnson ended up heaving on the buzzer from the corner and missed. So they've got the ball, tied game. Tick it down. What are you going to do? You're going to get Morgan shooting a 3 because he's 9 for 11 from 3-point range. So
yeah,
ran it down.
Good start. I live with that. Yeah.
Jeez.
In fact, I was quite frustrated that Austin let him get it off. To be honest, I'm not letting him get that shot off. I'm all over. I'm making him drive. I'm making him run into my teammates. Whatever. He's made 9. He's not the one who should be. Just beyond that, I mean, the reason that it went to overtime is because Newcastle's clock management was awful. Because if you get the ball with 48 seconds to go, you have to get 2 shots.
Yeah.
You have to get 2 shots for 1. That means you have to have something which is going to be shot. You have to get a shot within 15 seconds. You give yourself 8 or 9 on the shot clock. That's just a non-negotiable. You put yourself in a position whereby you have 2 chances and they have 1. And you've given away one of those chances because you couldn't even get a shot off.
And actually, then on the missed 3 that Morgan had, Grantham got an offensive rebound and could have won it on the buzzer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, but no, the very fact that Morgan was allowed to get anywhere near that basketball, or certainly once he got it, could just line it up the way that he did, was indicative, I thought, that Newcastle weren't going to win, because I didn't see that they would get the stops that were necessary.
Although a minute into overtime, Morgan did foul out.
Which again gave them a real shot. But they couldn't take it because they didn't have the defense, unfortunately.
1:20 to go, push off by Johnson was his 5th foul. He fouled out and then Sholawadi hits a 3, 105-99, and that was basically that.
Yeah, Newcastle didn't 1935 threes for London. London were bailed out by the 3-point shooting, and that's because Newcastle didn't contest it properly. Virtually every single 3-point shot London made was a catch and shoot. Now you can live with with 9 or 10 of them. You can't live with 19, not 19 catch and shoots. And that means that you're not respecting the opposition. And of course, Newcastle's backcourt isn't that big. So when the ball's rotated out, they can't just run out there with a hand up because that's just like not being there. They got to run out and get into the body, and make them dribble the basketball. And they did a horrible job of that. They did a horrible job of staying connected. Against that, offensively, they did a very good job of staying in the game, of moving the basketball, of actually knocking down 3-point shots for a change. But most importantly, they did a good job of actually being in a contest. Being in a contest with London, and that's the way that some teams are going to have to go. You can't all be nicey with these guys because ultimately they're going to. I would much prefer that somebody tread on my head to get over me than pat me on the back to get past me.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I much if they're going to beat me, fine. You're going to beat me, but you're going to beat me. And I'm going to go down kicking, screaming, scratching, clawing, whatever. That's what I always learned. And that doesn't mean cheating. That doesn't mean inciting violence, because we'll get onto that in the next.
We'll get onto that.
Game. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean being in the battle.
Yeah.
And I think some of the other teams, and hopefully, I know there's been some mitigating factors in relation to schedule and injuries and all sorts of stuff. Cheshire went down there without Aaron Rye, for instance, and and they haven't. And Caledonia were very, very raw at the time they went down there. But some of the other teams, I think, we need to take away the kind of, oh my God, it's Olaseni, oh my God, it's Matt Morgan, oh my God, it's this, that, the other, and just treat them like other guys. And if they stamp on your head and you have to pick a fight with them, not a literal fight, but you have to pick a physical contest with them and do it, then fine, I'll live with that, shake the hands afterwards. But don't be. But we've been a bit. Everybody else has been a bit supine so far.
Yeah.
So there you go. So that was the one pleasing thing for me for the league's perspective.
Yeah. Matt Morgan, 9 of 12 from 3 finished, 30 points. Grantham, 23.6 rebounds, 4 assists. Philip, 15.7 rebounds, 19 for 36 they were from
36.
My bad. Johnson, 24 points, 5 rebounds. Green, 23 points, 5 rebounds. McGill, 17. Wednesday night, there were 2 European games. Caledonia won 80-68 away at CSU Sibiu. And London won 99-87 in Riga against Prometey Slobozhanske, of course, a Ukrainian team playing in Riga. I didn't have a chance to watch back. I was doing EuroLeague on Wednesday night, so I didn't see any of them live, and I haven't had a chance to watch back. I have done Prometey once this year. It's still a good win on the road, but I don't think they're quite as good as the team that topped the group.
No, the only thing
did you see either of these games?
I saw bits of it. Yeah, I saw the kind of second half. I thought they had Marcus Keane playing for them, who played in the basketball tournament over there against Chapman's team a couple of years ago. It was a guy basically played in that and just shot the ball every time he got it. It was great fun to watch. He's playing, and I was thinking, who's he play for in Europe? And he's playing a little bit more team orientated basketball. I just think London are good, and they know that they're good. Now there's always someone who's better. And, we might find it out with Paris coming this week, and I don't think Slobozhanske were great insofar as they were eminently beatable, but I'm not sure. I certainly think at this time last season London wouldn't have beaten them.
Yeah, they wouldn't have won the game this time. No.
So that's progress, isn't it? And so credit them in relation to actually what happened. Decker played well, and Decker basically came out. They made a run in the last 2 minutes and blew it out. It was a close game up until they were always going to win, I thought, but last 2 minutes they put about 9 points on them, and Decker made a 3 on the buzzer to make it a 12-point game. Just literally dribbling down the court with 5 seconds ago. And that really put a exclamation mark on it. But they're a confident team in the clutch. You see that they really are, and they got a lot. That's a credit to the coach, really, because the coach is. It seems to have the right kind of demeanor to trust his guys and to let them play. And there's no, they lost a lot of games in the clutch last year.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
And this year they look very, very different. And some of the personnel are the same, so interesting. In relation to Caledonia, I watched. I'm afraid I watched the first 5 minutes and they couldn't hit a barn door. I thought, oh my God, they're not going to score 40. But what they have is a system, and the system actually worked quite well for them insofar as, again, the Romanian team didn't really have the athleticism that you would expect in a BBL team. And Patrick Whelan eventually got open and started knocking down shots. He was 6 or 7 in the game for 3, which basically broke the game. That was the game. Because nobody else could score the ball particularly efficiently. Didn't watch much of the second half because I was out coaching an under-10 girls football team, and they tipped off at 4 o'clock, which was horrendous for the players. Show. But it was a good. No, but it's look, we're just getting to the point now where we're actually realizing that our league is all right.
Yeah.
Actually, European. These are countries that you ask agents in the summer. They won't sign to play in Britain if they're coming from Romania or from Bulgaria or people like that, because it's Britain, and now we're going over there and we're beating teams from Romania and Bulgaria, and actually we don't want their players anymore. Players who are playing there because we're better than that, so we knew it, or certainly those around the league knew it. And you talk to Rob or to Vince or to Team or anybody like that, they all know that this is not strict. This is not a league for deadbeats or a recreational league for a bunch of bunch of guys who can't get a gig in Ireland. This is a proper league, and now we're beginning to demonstrate that. And Bristol and Caledonia's wins, I think, put us kind of, and even Newcastle and Lithuania, it kind of puts us in a strata. It's beginning to dictate kind of the strata that we're in. Now, obviously, they're going to come up against an ACB team next time round, or the next time after that. That's going to be a different test altogether. And nobody is saying that the BBL is the ACB.
No.
But the reality is that, as the visibility grows, as teams do okay, this becomes more of a destination because it has all the inherent advantages of the language and all of that stuff and the proximity to the USA, and hopefully that improves the standard of the league. And we also, of course, have the advantage of 6 imports, and a lot of these other countries don't, which allows us to have a bit more depth, affordable depth to the team. But good for them. Good for Caledonia, good for London. It's good. It has to be.
I'm doing Eurocup this week, so I won't see this week's European games. But TJ Shorts and Matt Morgan on the same court should be fun to watch. I would recommend London against Paris for anybody who wants.
I just want to thank TJ Shorts' mum for calling him TJ Short. I hope TJ Shorts gets his TJ Shorts from TK Maxx. That's all else.
Yeah, I did Paris.
I hadn't prepared that line either.
No.
Sorry, guys, I just made it up on the spot.
I did Paris either last week or the week before. I can't remember now. They're pretty good. I quite enjoyed that. They're much better than they were last year. Yeah, they're good. Right. So, last year they were good but flaky, but yeah, they look less flaky this year. So let's go to Thursday. Manchester Giants 87, Bristol 91. Still no Robertson and no Lee. For Manchester. Manchester making 3s early on, Bristol keeping with them. Tight open exchanges until Giants had a 11-2 run to lead 26-17.
Yeah, Manchester playing ultra small ball by necessity. But
working for them.
Well, yeah, because this is the thing, fans don't necessarily understand. They'll be better when Lee and Robertson come back. No, they'll be different when Lee and Robertson come back. Doesn't mean they'll be better, doesn't mean they'll be worse. It just means they'll be different. And sometimes when you're forced to play one style of basketball and you have an identity, as Mr. Rowe would tell you, then that can assist you. He's absolutely right, it does. So they know what they are. And they're playing aggressively and attacking. Bristol have more athletes, though. Bristol are more athletic because they've got more size and quickness in the backcourt. And ultimately, I think that made the difference in this game. It's very difficult to play small ball with Stampley at the 5 or with, I think Lawton got hurt a little bit in this game as well. It's very difficult to kind of play that, 4 games in 7 days. And maintain that. It just really eventually it wears down on the body because you're not fighting fire physically with fire. You're trying to beat them with other stuff and quickness, and that means you've got to be quicker. You've got to be first to everything. You got to be buzzing around them. You got to, all that stuff. And I don't mean literally buzzing. I just mean obviously buzzing. Moving.
Bees in Manchester.
Bees in Manchester. So it went kind of back and forwards. Lucas played well. Lucas is their litmus, I think, Bristol.
Yeah.
And we're going through the annual, what appears now to be the annual not sure about Bristol thing. And this last year, because they only played home games. This year, it's because they've had, the platter of Plymouth 3 times in a row, basically, which means that, okay, are we that sure about them yet? But this was a big win for them because this was a game that, this was a tier game, a kind of separator. You at the moment, we're in a situation where the league is separating itself out into tiers, and Bristol want to be in that kind of immediately below London tier, as do Leicester, as everybody else. Now, Leicester went to Manchester and lost, and so Bristol, getting that win, really helps validate them because you don't win easy on the road in this league, and apart from London, we're the only team to win on the road this week.
Yeah. The Giants were leading 38-32, 3 minutes for halftime. Flyers scored the last 16 points of the first half, and then the first couple of scores of the third quarter to make it 20 points in a row and lead 38-52. Yeah,
and that's when I think I've said it before, that's when good teams put the hammer down at the end of the half, the end of the first half in particular. Why? Because that's when your depth shows. Because if the halves were 15 minutes, it'd be a lot easier for less deep teams to compete. But with the halves of 20 minutes, that's when you get tired. That's when you have to keep doing what you're doing all the way to the end of the half. And if you haven't got the bodies and you've been playing undermanned, then that can be when the game gets away from you. And it did. And it was also, Orson and Jacob are making some shots. They are really the 3.9 is no more than an advisory guide for them.
Yeah, it is.
If they catch the ball and if their feet are set, then it's going up and they're making. Jacob shot like 38% from three last time he was here. Ollison is since turning the corner in like February of last year, he's 40% plus. And more importantly, they're two of those guys who you think it's going in.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the thing. It's a feel. You think it's going in. You don't even need to look at the numbers, and doing that with obviously their focus on their offensive rebounding as well. They know where the shots are coming from.
Yeah.
So
the Giants had an 11-0 run thanks to threes from Boyce and Stampley to make it 53-60. Flyers did get back to double figures. Mid fourth quarter, 74-84. Giants have got a lot of fight in them. They don't give up on things. And McNeil, well, maybe in the next game. McNeil and Stampley hit threes. Giants 11-0 run, and they were in front 85-84.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I don't mismatch the Giants games, but I think we had kind of a first sighting of a Lewis, McNeil, Harris backcourt in this game with kind of Anderson and another. I think it was Stampley. Yeah, who kind of got them in. That's kind of and Nick Lewis has been doing really well running the point off the bench, and getting those guys going. And they also make shots.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
make shots and make plays. And when you've got a stretch five, I was actually towards the end of the game, I was actually thinking to the coach, go on, put Evan Walsh, take Stampley out and put Walsh in. Go
uber small.
Lilliputian. Go as small as you possibly, because you need because they needed to speed the game up. That was the only way they could compete with Bristol. They had to play fast. They had to get shots. They had to go up and down. They had to try and lull Bristol into that game. Not to throw it into Brad Green game or anything like that. And I appreciate that would have been, they'd have been looking at Jamel guard Brad Green. Okay, it's not easy, but I would love to see it. Just throw that whole dice in, throw it all in there, go all in. On that, because Walsh sat down for quite a lot, and I thought Walsh was suited to that game because he gets you cheap points in transition.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And they didn't, and down near the end, I think they eventually ran out of that, and I think Lucas made a couple of plays.
So 1:31 to go. Lucas fouled in transition going to the rim. 2 free throws. He actually missed both free throws, but Graham Bell got a putback, 85-86. To Bristol. Anderson was then called for a charge on Johnson on the next Manchester play. Green misses a shot, gets his own rebound, misses again. All those offensive rebounds count. And he's fouled and gets 1 point out of it. So 3 shots and one point. But 2 offensive rebounds bonus. So 85-87. And then Anderson had a mismatch with Green. I don't know why Green was guarding him out on the perimeter with 45 seconds to go. So he just blew past him, got fouled, tied the game at 87 from the free throw line. Yeah. Sorry, were you going to jump in?
No. Yeah. I think it was just mismatch in transition.
Yeah.
Anderson's playing the 4, so much for a 4 and a 5 to switch and to be in the wrong transition. Yeah.
Johnson with the drive, he's fouled 2 free throws, 87-89. Timeout, no advance. Lewis almost lost the ball on the dribble, and because of that, the defenders are then scrambling to try and force a turnover. And McNeil is open in the corner for a 3, and that's potentially a game.
Well, they came up with it. I think it might have been Ralph Thomas Edwards came up with kind of a semi-show on a double team at the top of the key on Lewis to get the ball out of his hands. I don't know if that was a plan or not, but it just discombobulated them a little bit. But they also got a kind of a nice looking corner 3 out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that was one of those kind of unscripted defensive moments where you think, no, yes, okay, because you've committed 2 men to the ball very early on that defensive possession, and they missed it. I thought that they struggled in this game in the end with the defense. I thought they were just a little bit small in the end and in the half court, which is why they didn't win it. And eventually, in that situation, you've just got to keep making shots. And unfortunately,
if that goes in, they might win the game there.
But at this point, we don't think McNeil is Dirk Williams.
No,
that's the problem. He hasn't got the years in the league where you think he's not one of those guys at the moment that it's going in.
Yeah.
So maybe he will be, but you don't know that yet.
Yeah, Graham Bell makes 2 free throws after he was fouled. 87-91, timeout. Vance Ball got the play they want. Quick Anderson 3 didn't go in, and that was the ball game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could. I think it was optimistic.
Yeah.
You know, he goes in. I think there was an argument for drive to the rim, but then again, I do actually like the idea. If you're down by more than a score, you need to make a play. You need to make a 3 in reality.
It was a good enough look. They ran it perfectly. It was. So Anderson, 23 points, 5 rebounds, only 37 minutes, 16 seconds. He got into foul trouble. He had to sit down for 3 minutes.
I think you'll find he got into foul trouble in the 3 minutes at the end of the first half, where it all went
wrong. Yeah.
You remember that game last year where he didn't play? Was it in Glasgow for whoever he was playing for last year, and they fell apart and gave up 120.
Yeah.
I think it was Cheshire. Was it Cheshire last year? Yeah, he wasn't playing in Glasgow and they gave up 120 when he wasn't there. He wasn't there. It fell apart. Say no more.
Lewis 18, McNeil and Stampley 13 points each, 24 points off turnovers. Keedy Johnson 20 points, Lucas 17 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Ollison 14 points and 6 assists. They had 25 points off turnovers.
Yeah, just on the old offensive rebound thing, because obviously we've got ongoing, you and your commentary partner about it, which I kind of unwisely intervened in online.
You're supposed to just sit and watch.
I am supposed to sit and watch, but that doesn't fit well with my interventionist nature. I think we have finally elucidated the actual point of what Rose has been trying to say, which in typical kind of basketball player who's taking too many blows to the head style, we haven't really got to up until now, which is basically every team needs an identity.
Yeah.
And I absolutely and utterly endorse and agree with Anthony in that every team does need an identity. What that identity is doesn't matter as much as being committed to it. We know from Andreas his identity is Flyers basketball, which is kind of a ubiquitous kind of phrase, which kind of tends to mean we played very well, from what I can gather. And we did lots of things very well. And then, but they do. To be fair to Bristol, the last 2 years they have had, clear way of playing. They've built their team around that, and a lot of the offensive rebounding that you talk about at Bristol, it comes because of the pressure that they place on the rim. They're not just chucking up shots and just running after them and getting them. They are placing pressure with athletic, aggressive drivers, getting to the rim, drawing help, and allowing other guys to kind of bomb in from the weak side and crash the boards with, again, athleticism and power and force to what they do. So it is a little bit more than just, we're going to go on offensive rebound.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. Just the numbers say they win more games when they shoot better.
I'm crying. Absolutely.
Let's go to the excitement of Friday night. Newcastle Eagles 95, Leicester Riders 90. Neighbour was back for Newcastle for a bit. Law was out for Leicester. Sloppy start to this game, both teams, but then Riders caught fire from behind the arc. Pinson and Thomas. They hit 3 in a row, 13-0 run, Leicester 16-2 up.
Yeah, Newcastle's starting 5 has been a sieve defensively. And I'm not just sitting, Leicester made some shots, but didn't make all their shots. And defensively, they've just been, it's almost like a bit too cool for school, and they're waiting to see what the other team's got. And they've already played this team 2 weeks ago, so they should know. If you stand up and defend the 3, but you've given up 19 threes at London, and you gave up 4 in the first 5 minutes with your starting unit, that is a problem. And particularly a problem because, this was, in many ways, this was kind of Newcastle's season, because they lost 5 in a row coming in, including the Lithuanian game. Albeit as good a loss as you could have in overtime in London, but you still lost. So, if you lose 6 in a row and then you got to go to Bristol, we'll get to that on Saturday night, and then you look at your schedule, we've got London coming in on Friday, and then we're going to Leicester. Right? So you're thinking, okay, where are we going to win? We could lose 9-10 in a row here. I say we as an Eagles fan on that perspective, right? But also thinking that, because you're playing against London, okay, that's not going to be straightforward. The Bristol game is almost a write-off because of various things, and the Leicester game, if they've already beaten you twice, you can hardly expect to walk down there and beat them. So losing that game was not catastrophic because of the way the league is formed or the competition is formed, but would really lead to a lot of internal difficulties. You know, if you when you go on that type of losing streak, 7, 8, 9, 10 games, and professional basketball changing rooms are not a happy place.
No, I know.
You know, so to come out the way they did, you know, which was kind of almost self-satisfied in relation to the way they played at London, was troubling. I thought, if I'm being blunt, I thought Defoe saved their season in the first 7 minutes that he played in that second after the 5-minute mark, because I think Newcastle went on a 20-4 run.
I've got a 10-0 run to tie it at 2020, but that was a part of it.
Yeah, I think they got to 26-22, like that, or something like that. And more importantly, they only scored because Leicester only actually scored. They missed some threes, but the defense was better because he's shouting at them from the middle. And also, and they only missed because they only scored because you know, Torres Green decided he was going to try and take somebody's, I think it was Idobu's head off on a drive when he just needed to contest a shot and committed a stupid foul and gave up 2 foul shots. And Kimball McKenzie made a really tough fadeaway baseline jump shot. And that was the only points they scored for about 7 or 8 minutes when Defoe was in the game. And then Neighbour came in the game, gave them some offense, gave them some spacing, and just allowed them to get a foothold into the game. And in the meantime, Leicester, Thomas, really impressive. You know, really kind of stretching, spacing, making the right play. Pinson, again, you know, you really like kind of his poise on the court, and Holmes, I really like his poise on the court as well. We'll talk about Asbury and Green in a minute.
Yeah. So just to pick up, 2:12 in the first quarter, Neighbour got a technical for a flop. He was sort of halfway down before the contact. And Defoe had been given a warning on the previous play, which probably didn't help.
I'll tell you what I think about that. Without hindsight, my thought about that was that, firstly, I don't know what it is like. I mean, Will Neighbour's not, he's not going to body you up. I get that. And secondly, I don't know what it's like when Will Walker turns his backside into you. But more than anything, it took away a basket for Leicester.
Yeah.
That play, you know, by calling the technical, that takes away Mo Walker's move, takes away his 2 points. I think Leicester missed the foul shot, and they hadn't scored for about 4 minutes. Now, my view of flop technicals has always been, you know, if there is contact, you better be absolutely sure. If someone's, I think the first warning on Defoe was perfectly fair because it was.
My thing is, on the replay, it did look like he's going like that before the contact is made, sort of thing.
That may be right, but that's Mo Walker, you know, and that might be. Yeah. But it took away a basket for Leicester.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And also, my other view is that a flop technical should be a team technical. It shouldn't be an individual technical, because
he got half of it, and Defoe got the other half.
Yeah, exactly. And as you go down the line, it's a third of it, and a quarter of it, and a fifth of it, as if you get any more. So, but it happens. I mean, that's the game. You can't say it's a wrong call. I just thought, I thought you could. It worries me when you're dealing with games which are going to be substantially physical, and that was physical for various reasons. That the first thing that the refs are doing is actually concerning about people falling over, as opposed to concerning about managing the degree of legitimate physical contact. I think that was the wrong starting point. But I think that kind of played out in the second quarter, to be honest.
Before we get to the second quarter, 6 seconds to go in the first, Ian McDonald down on the floor with an injury. He wasn't on the camera. Did you see what happened?
I didn't, because I sad to say, I have to concede, I wasn't there.
Oh, really?
I really wasn't there. I had my 15-year-old son having his first ever sleepover with a bunch of people, and the wife already booked to go out. And there was absolutely no way in the world that she was going to or that I could potentially leave him in a house which isn't shy of alcohol. So I wasn't there, and so I didn't see what happened, but I assume he fell over.
So the reason we've talked about Neighbour in his flop is 8:26 in the second quarter. He got called for an unsportsmanlike foul. He had a mismatch with Kimball McKenzie on his back, and he's using his elbow. He goes with one elbow to sort him that way and another elbow to that way. And the second one, Kimball goes back, and the referee sees it, probably because they were drawn to the first one. It's an
well, I thought that there was I've had a couple of texts about this from former players. And my initial thought was, well, actually, yeah, it doesn't matter whether he's doing it intentionally. I don't think he's 6'11", Mackenzie's 6 foot, so his elbows are kind of close to Mackenzie's face height. That's always the problem with big on little. But it doesn't really matter whether you're deliberately aiming for him. If you hit someone with an elbow, that's generally sportsman because you're in the safety of an opponent.
Yeah.
The point that, as I say, I've had a couple of ex-players point out to me about it was, well, look, there's been a lot of physical contact between the two of them on the post already. Mackenzie was doing what he's meant to do, which is be a pest, get in front of him, disrupt, do what he can. Neighbour's trying to kind of hold his position and get in front and get the basketball, which is what he's meant to do. And I've certainly seen double fouls called for less before that even happened. And nothing happened. And so the ref saw elbow back movement. It certainly hit Mackenzie either in the throat or in the chin, certainly close to his face. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not angry about. I'm not angry about it. I just think that it could have been officiated differently, because what happens is you get the results of the 5 or 6 seconds of scuffling that had been going on. You know what I mean?
So let's get to the real meat of it all. 47 seconds to go in the second quarter. The ball is knocked into the backcourt. Green and Thomas, Leicester's backcourt. Green and Thomas running back towards the ball. To be honest with you, the first time I saw it, which was on Friday night while I was doing the other game, I thought that Green had just barged into Thomas and fouled him. When I watched it the second time, I didn't on Saturday morning, it almost felt like to me neither of them were quite going for the ball, and they were both.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because Lloyd and Tahir had it as an unsportsmanlike on Thomas. They had it as and Lloyd, I was listening to the commentary on this game, and I have to say it was pretty good. Lloyd was very, very good on the stuff that was going on. And what the basic rule in basketball is that if there's a loose ball, you have to run for it. You cannot change your direction in any way. Because of players that you can't shield the ball out of play, for instance, like football.
Yeah, like football. Yeah,
you can't do it. You run straight for the ball, and if you make any kind of movement which precipitates contact with somebody else who is in a straight line, then that's a foul on you. And if you're not playing the ball, it's likely an unsportsmanlike foul. My initial thought was on what I saw in the first angle was the same as Lloyd and Tahir. I thought that Thomas had just changed his path to make contact with Green. Then you saw the camera from the baseline, and it wasn't quite as clear.
No, that's why I thought they were kind of both.
Yeah, it wasn't quite clear. But what's happened? But what then happens is that Green is thinking. Now, let's just go on the backstory of all of this, right? The backstory of all of this is
before we do that. Shall I just explain what happens, and then you do the backstory?
All right, okay.
So it's coming together. Thomas ends up on the baseline. Green on the sideline. Green walks up to him and clapping in his face and talking smack, basically. Yeah. Thomas didn't initially look concerned. It was like he was sort of going, oh, he'll stop eventually. He didn't stop, and then he pushes him off, and then it sort of kicks off a little bit, and there's a bit of hoo-ha.
Yeah, that's about right. The backstory is basically 2 weeks ago, Asbury was mic'd up.
Yeah. And
the footage released by the league in relation to him being mic'd up went a long way beyond what you ever used to Buzz 16 released. Let's be blunt. Which was, I think, a little bit more sanitized. And also, I would be surprised if a player who is mic'd up, it was mic'd up in your ways. For instance, you had like Gino or Ramon mic'd up. They wouldn't be talking like that.
There were occasions during the mic'd up where we couldn't use any of it because there was nothing that wasn't explicit at all. Yep. There were occasions where some people said nothing. There were occasions where stuff happened. I remember one where a prominent player got into an argument with his coach in a timeout, and we never used that other than it went in our little group chat on
I must get into that group
to say that. But even there was I can say it now, but the playoff semi-final, Newcastle against Leicester, Gino said he was mic'd up in that, and Gino said something, obviously Leicester lost the game, said something, words to the effect, with probably one or two choice bits of language. Oh, I'm coming back next year and we're going to beat you next year.
Yeah, I get, yeah.
Or something like that. And obviously at that time, nobody knew he was coming back. So we had that. We could have broke that as a story, but it wasn't.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, and probably sensible reasons, because you don't want to lose the trust of players. That is sanitized.
And the other thing is, Newcastle used to say no. The players would say yes, the coach said no. So you remember Chris Dodds was mic'd up one game because a player from Newcastle had said he would do it, and then when we got there, the coach said he wasn't allowed.
Yeah. And I kind of get that as well, because I'm not sure. I get shows, I get good stuff, content can come. But you have to trust your players.
Yeah.
And they're not only Newcastle players last year were new players who, and then you're thinking only bad things can come from this. I could get that. Well, anyway, I don't think Asbury covered himself in glory and stuff was released, because he was talking about, scouting reports, and he was talking, as you say, talking smack. And the problem is that goes out, that is showing up another professional. And the reality is all these guys, whilst they're playing for different jerseys, they're all kind of the same. They're all trying to make their way in the world. And there is an understanding of that. And there is a degree of solidarity between players on different teams. There are some who just don't like each other and all that stuff. Now, but there is a degree of solidarity. Everybody understands that, you're all one injury away from having to change your whole life plan. And there's a lot of stuff which is said on the court, which stays on the court. And unfortunately, it's said on the court. So that led to a degree of embarrassment for the people that's talking to. And of course, that goes in group chats and it goes viral. So that then winds people up. Now, none of that is an excuse.
No. So my take on that is, because I've had this discussion with people as well, is that I wouldn't have put it out. That was the first thing. I wouldn't have put it out.
Yeah, I agree.
If it was on these reels, maybe, rather than the league thing, maybe. It was probably Derek doing the filming anyway, but probably wouldn't. And I'm pretty confident that the coach of Leicester didn't realise what was being done, because I'm sure he wouldn't have been overly impressed.
You're right.
With it, as somebody who never likes to give the opponents anything at all.
Exactly. Ever. Yeah, exactly. It's not.
But what was said on there, obviously, in some ways, it going out is less of a concern to me, because everything that he said on the court to Green. So it's not like Green needed to see it in the group chat to know what he'd said. And I should imagine if Green had been mic'd up, he would have said something similar back to him.
Absolutely. I get that.
My take on it.
Yeah,
so,
I get that.
And as you say, players talking smack, that's part of the game. Yeah. When I played local league, we talked smack to each other and we were rubbish. When I played one-on-one with my dad in the back garden, we would talk smack to each other. When Sammy's shooting threes against Kieran before the game, every game over the last 3 years, they would talk smack to each other and we would join in with it. So I haven't really.
I'm not. Yeah, this ain't the game for choir boys. When
I tell you what I think is the most egregious thing, and I tell you the reason why I think this has happened isn't the video. It's the fact that they played 2 weeks apart. This goes back to the point that if they played in January was their next meeting, it would have all been forgotten.
Well, it would have been forgotten by everybody apart from the players who would have used it. Who would have been a bit more sensible about it. Okay, but I say that. But at the end of the day, the reality is that the two teams that were there on Friday, each team has a significant problem, right? And the significant problem for Newcastle is Green, and the significant problem for Leicester is Asbury. I've got absolutely no hesitation in saying that. With Green, we knew a little bit more about it because we saw him last year. We've seen him up and down. With Asbury, we're still learning him. What we do know is he's already had a particularly unpalatable running with the most successful coach in the BBL at the moment, on his own bench. Okay, so there are two problems which these teams need to have. Now, what Green did the reason Green ran to Thomas was because Green was saying, they're not going to call a foul, but I know what you did. I'm going to clap in my face. You can't beat me. All this stuff. It was childish, unprofessional rubbish. Right, and actually,
it was also antagonism. I should imagine trying to provoke a reaction.
Yeah, well, I'm not even sure if he thinks that far ahead, but it was certainly antagonistic. And it actually, a few minutes earlier, he'd made a three off a pass played out, And he'd made a 3 and he'd ran back down the court and he'd done all the signs. He'd done all that. He'd been waving at the Leicester bench, doing all sorts of ridiculous stuff for a stretch 4 who made a 3. That's your job, right? That is your job. Okay. So he was gone. The whole game, he was gone. His head was not where it needed to be at all. And sometimes you can kind of tailor that enthusiasm and sometimes you can manage it, but with that too far. And that's a problem because you can play, use a phrase, and I don't mean this disrespect, you can play on punk teams whereby you all run up and down and you hit each other and you whack each other, but they don't win. Okay, it's all about winning. I don't care about the halcyon spirit of yesterday or it being a family sport or any of that rubbish. You've been in the trenches with Flanoy, with Paternoster you don't care. Right? It's not about that. It's about what can you do to assist your team to win within the rules of the game. And there is an unwritten code about things that are beyond the pale, trying to injure people or whatever. There is certain things you don't do, right? And the proper players, the players who are serious, understand that, and they also understand that the worst thing for their career is something like that happening, right? Because they're all over. It just shows every coach who looks at them thinks, well, I can't trust him. I can't trust him, and coaches want trust because coaches don't have a tremendous amount of job security. I ain't going to lose my job over him, right? So what happens is Thomas. I've got no problem with Thomas pushing him off. I think, as I say, I think at that point the refs should have been blowing their whistles. I'll be honest. There's this habit of like happens in football where there's a bit of a brawl where all the refs stand around and watch. I think as soon as Green goes up with Thomas. As soon as Green, no matter what happened before, as soon as Green goes up with Thomas, it's an automatic technical. Blow your whistle. If you blow your whistle, that kicks everything out. Because everybody stops and talks about the whistle. Because if Green keeps going at that point, he's gone. Right? If anybody now, what then happened was basically you had your normal kind of sensible people, trying to.
So my take on it is most of the people who came in were de-escalating. Asbury looked like he had the body language of an escalator rather than a de-escalator.
That was he was.
And Austin was somewhere in between, and obviously Austin slaps, but he's been pointed at. So
that's the bottom line. I've got no problem with Austin as well.
It was probably I'm falling over it. It's probably more of a reaction in the sort of slap than the push, but again it's the reaction to a provocation.
Well, I've got no problem with Thomas pushing him off, and I've got no problem with Austin knocking his hand away because you're right. Basically Green horrendously out of order, out of control. Thomas, I think probably it's still a little bit looking to get away with the slight bump, but I'm 50-50 on that. And Asbury in there looking for a problem. And that's why I say Green and Asbury are the problems. Everybody else. Holmes, really impressive, calming things down. Jordan Johnson looking after his guy, but under control. Thomas, showing that he had a filter in relation to the way he was handling himself. The other two, way out of control. And as I say, I don't necessarily think the refs.
Well, my take is right, but by the time, because I knew who'd been ejected and all of that, but I didn't know the order of how things happened. So when I came home, when I was watching it on Sunday morning, I obviously watched it and then I rewound it and had a look and watched and then blah, blah, blah. So I'd seen the incident 6 or 7 times from whatever angles we'd got before I knew what the referees had called, because obviously they then come together and have a conflab. And I went, you know what? If I'd only seen that once in real time and I'd ended up with unsportsmanlike for Thomas, unsportsmanlike for Green, and T for Asbury, I'd go, well, you know what? That's probably fair enough from all of that. Maybe a touch harsh on Thomas, a bit light on Green if I was whatever, but within the realms of what they could do, I thought that was a good outcome. I thought they did well.
I'm not quite sure what Green's unsportsmanlike was. I think it was a technical. I think the clapping's a technical. I don't think it can be unsportsmanlike. Okay.
I think what it is they then gone back to the initial thing and said that you're both doing stuff.
That may be right. And that may be right. But the bigger problem is, of course, it's all on the big screen.
Yeah.
And the refs ain't got a It is utterly pathetic. It is embarrassing. It is unfair on the referees.
Yeah.
It's unfair to a certain degree on the players, because you run the risk. Who's to say that if they'd had the chance to look at Neighbour's elbow again, they might have, because it was on sports, they might have thought, well, actually, we look at the point of contact, it's not on the face, he's posting up, we're going to make it a regular foul. They might not, but they never had a chance, right? In relation to that incident in itself, never had a chance to look at anything. Okay, as I say, my criticism of them is that they didn't blow the whistle quick enough. That's as soon as Green goes up to Thomas, that's an automatic technical, because that means he has to desist. If he doesn't desist, he's out straight away. That calms things down quicker than anything else. If you just stand there and let things go and watch, then you're bottling it. You'd say, "Oh, we'll see what happens." And you know how much from the last year with Larry Austin at Bristol, how much I hate the whole 2 technicals for 1 instant. Therefore, you throw it. You got to blow the whistle first. So anyway, that made it, nice and tasty, and then it got even better.
So my surprise watching on was that Green was still on the court, to a lesser extent Asbury.
Yeah, but Green didn't hit anybody.
Green
didn't hit anybody. That's the thing. He did the Prometey.
Yeah. But given I've watched him for a year, I think I would have sat him down at that point.
You mean if he'd been subbed? You mean as opposed to being
subbed? Yeah. Subbed, not ejected. Subbed. Yeah. No problem with the unsportsmanlike call. Just I would have subbed him at that point.
Yeah.
And maybe Asbury, although probably less so, because he looked like he was trying to escalate. He wasn't involved in the initial thingy. So anyway, following play, Asbury gets the ball. Pinson's driving through. He's falling over. He kicks to Asbury in the corner. Asbury puts the ball on the floor. There's a collision between he and Johnson, which is called a block by the referee on the baseline, his third. And then Asbury goes up to shoot it, and Green comes from 8-10 feet away, pretending he's trying to block, but basically clobbers him into the boards. And that's instantly called an unsportsmanlike foul. And obviously that's his DQ.
Yeah, again, actually, I watched this, the first angle, I actually thought absolutely exactly almost the words that you've said there. Because I don't think, and there is a but to this, again, the baseline angle from the far baseline, Green actually gets a lot higher than Asbury's head, if I can put it that way, when he's gone up there. And I do think that initially it is an absolutely out of control attempt to block a shot, possibly also enraged by the fact that he's knocked his mate over.
Yeah.
Right? So I think he's totally out of control. I don't think it's an attempt to lay him out, because if you have to watch it from the baseline, I think from the first angle it is, and from the second angle it isn't. From the baseline angle, you actually see the lines of the players. But in any event, I thought the ref was slow on making the blocking call, which I thought was a charge, I'll be honest. But nevertheless, he was spot on making the unsportsmanlike call. Absolutely spot on. You can't, even though I think Green had made his move towards Asbury before the whistle had been blown. I don't think it was a kind of a shot after the whistle, because the whistle was late. Look, Green was just out of control. You can't win like that. You can't win with players like that. You can't. It's he let his teammates down, but they were far better without him. Because that type of being out of control impacts negatively on everybody else around you. And the other thing is that Asbury was also out of control.
Well, I was just about to get to that. Thomas, speaking of being in total control, Thomas did his teammate a massive favour by running from about 10, 15 feet away and just grabbing him, because he'd got up looking for a retaliation, and Thomas just grabbed him and carried, because he would have got whatever he did in that was going to be either a technical, an unsportsmanlike, or a DQ. So he was out of the game irrespective of whatever it was. But
Thomas, Thomas
grabbed him and held him
back to people like Neil and Roger and Keith, and it wouldn't have happened. I mean, they'd all have been gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that type of, and it would have been no question, no 5-minute conversations.
Yeah.
It would have been, we've got head cases on the court. We're getting rid of them. right? And I do think that they are both significant problems for their team. Green, because his starting unit, the starting unit with him in, is being absolutely obliterated at the moment. Asbury, because he isn't playing particularly well, and he's bringing a lot of drama. And unfortunately, when that drama, it's all right keeping that drama internal, and you can say what the hell you want to your coach in the locker room, because nobody ever finds out about it, right? And stuff is said in the locker room that people have to take back in consideration. When you do it in public, like he did at Manchester, and then you back it up with kind of that type of, it's back. It was back to Rico and co.
Well, I was going to say this because I actually watched both Newcastle and both Newcastle games on the same day, and there was something in the later game where Mark had obviously said something to Green in that first time out, but there was something later on. I forgot what it was, but there was shades of Rico in that sort of, on his day with incredible athlete, and we could really help the team, but other times he let the emotion of the game, shall we say, get the better of him, and I just sort of got a little essence of Rico watching that game.
The game has moved on, right?
Yeah, true.
You look at I'm sorry, but you look at the last 12 or 13 years, right, in the BBL, the best teams have not had head cases playing for them. Right, and when the phrase head case is a bit pejorative, but what it means is people who are not considering every step of the way the best course of action. You might not be happy with what Asbury's said to you in the game before it's been online, right? Well, you don't go out there like that. You might wait until March before you get him back. When everybody's forgotten about it all, right? Well, you've got to be smart about what you do. When I say get him back, I mean you can be aggressive in different ways. But to it's almost like hook, line, and sinker. Here's a rod. Here's a rod. Here's a bite off you.
Because the other thing is that Asbury goes 4 for 4 from the free throw line. Rob then subs him out, unsurprisingly, and then Bridges scores. So they got 6 points off that play in a 5-point game.
Well, but you're not thinking like that, are they? They're all thinking of the testosterone. I'm afraid that's a bottom line, and that's not winning basketball. You can play fiery while still winning. I had a lot of fiery guys around me who played but had a degree of control. Rob's had a lot of fiery guys around him. But that was more Tack Minor than Tyler Berardini. There's a level of stuff, and Green. I mean, I can't remember. I'm trying to remember at Newcastle. And Tack Minor, for those who don't know, was 15 years. So this is a long time to come back. Early stages, Rob. The guy.
And to be fair, it was one of them where the talent was that good that you're like, can I put up with it? And
the talent was that good until they were up 30 points with a minute to go, and he decided he was going to bang someone's head off the floor. It's not just. You take chance on talent all the time. We had Paul Gores, who had a couple of famous meltdowns. But we were able to control him to a certain degree, and he was always very, very team-minded individual. He wouldn't let himself get, as emoted, the occasional red mist. But Green, and to a certain degree, I think both of them, they went on that court, ready to set the score. They went on that court like there was going to be gunfight at the OK Corral. And that does not help either of their teams, and neither of their coaches want that. And I don't know what their strategies are going to be to solve it, because all I'm interested in is how this impacts on winning, nothing else. So, but each coach is going to have the strategy to solve it, and there's no different sort. You can go from putting an arm around him, to cussing him out, to benching him, to getting rid of him. This is professional basketball. You have all those options. Now, I'm not going to tell each coach what to do, because I'm not in the locker room and I don't know the players. But that is not conducive to winning. And what it does is it shows the other guys who are conducive. It actually shows them in a good light. It shows Thomas in a fantastic light.
Yeah.
And Del Pesh, I think, was doing the same for Newcastle. He was putting, he was trying to talk to Green as well. So you see who the pros are, and you see who I'm not going to say anymore. It's just not good.
Let's go back to the game now, because we've got a lot to get through still. Asbury got his 4th foul early in the 3rd quarter, by the way. Eagles with a 10-0 run. Johnson and McGill hitting threes to 65, 55 in the 3rd quarter. Ryder's got it back in the fourth, a 10-2 run. Mackenzie had 5.7471. Pinson and Holmes' threes keep Leicester hanging on.
Yeah, I mean, well, Newcastle got kind of the real McCoy or the real McGill, didn't they?
Yeah.
At least what we hope is the real McGill, because he had that strange period at Plymouth in his first few weeks where he was horrible, and he's not been great in Newcastle, and then suddenly he's splashing shots like Matt Morgan, and I thought both teams' defense was not great. At times, I thought the Riders, I'm not quite sure with Asbury's getting a lot of rope, I'll say that, because his defense wasn't great. He's often a couple of pretty poor shot selections, and you've got him on the court instead of Mackenzie or Washington. And I'm thinking, how much more are you going to do with because Pinson's playing great. Pinson plays like a guy who's seen it all. They were down 6 with 35 seconds to go. He had the nous to pull up and shoot a three and make a three, instead of a two, which wouldn't have helped them. But they didn't have Mackenzie on the court. Newcastle, they just attacked them with their guards. And the thing with Newcastle is that they are really tough to guard in the backcourt. What they're not really doing is getting their bigs enough touches at the moment. Didn't matter in this game because McGill and Whitfield and Johnson made shots.
Yeah. So last few minutes, Whitfield corner three, 80, put them up 6. Mackenzie to the basket, 89-85. McGill top of the key, 91-85. Adowo missed a 3, but Holmes got a block. Pinson, you just talked about it, that step back 3, 91-88 with 28.7 seconds to go. And then Leicester in that thing of what are they doing? Because there's a 5.2 second shot clock differential. They eventually commit 2 fouls. McGill at the free throw line makes both 93-88, and then it was Leicester couldn't get the ball, only down 1 shot.
Yeah, basically that's a game. Once you get into a situation where you make foul shots to win as a coach, that's all you can ask for. If you get to the point whereby we sort of inbound the ball and make foul shots to win, then the coach is happy. All the players have to do is execute like they've been doing every day of their life since they're about 9 years old. I mean, it was a game that Newcastle needed more than Leicester, and Leicester had already won 1. It was really intriguing that Newcastle were playing really small at the end. They had like the 3 guards on and Whitfield. And that actually helped them offensively because it meant there was only one way they could play, which was to space the court out and give the ball to their guards. And again, part of the problem they've been having with Green is that Green sometimes he spaces, sometimes he crashes, sometimes he runs, sometimes he's filling the paint, sometimes he's not. And that's not helping their offensive spacing and getting good shots every time down. Whereas in comparison, someone like Thomas, you've got a fair idea. He's either spotting up or he's cutting to the rim. Green's an offensive rebounder at heart, so he's always kind of looking for an offensive rebound, so he's creeping in. And they got, and last year he played most of the 5 as opposed to the 4, which is a very different role. So they've got to find a way, because he is a valuable player for them because of his energy and his rebounding, and he can shoot the ball. And he played well at London, shot the ball well, but they have to find a way of integrating his randomness. Whether it's playing him with different units, whether it's giving him a specific role, whether it's just simply not tolerating what's gone on. He is an issue. And as I say, I think Asbury is an issue too. And I think other than that, it's 2 pretty decent teams.
Eagles doubled their 3-point percentage in this game. They were 27.8 coming into the game. They shot 54.2 in this game. McGill was 1 for 13 prior to this game from 3. He was 6 of 10 in this game. McGill led the way with
example, if McGill had been a rookie, he probably still wouldn't be here.
Yeah. But as you say, it was the Plymouth thing. One wag said to me they signed Johnson for the beginning of the season and McGill for the end. Johnson started very well in.
That's good.
I thought he was a bit daylight savings time. He was really good at the beginning and at the end, but in the dark and cold of Glasgow in the middle, not so much. The McGill 31 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 6 of 10 for 3. Johnson 21 points, Austin 15. Thomas 7 for 11, including 4 of 7 threes, 22 points and 10 rebound. Pinson 7 for 11 and 5 of 7 from 3 for 19 points. Mackenzie 16 points. Right, we've got loads of games still, and it's nearly 10:30. Let's see, we got to crack on. It's normally out live by this point rather than still recording. Sheffield Sharks 76, London Lions 92. No, Grantham, Decker, Sharma, Phillip. Sheffield couldn't score after they led 7-1. They got one field goal in 5 minutes, and the Morgans and Olasani pushed London 17-8 ahead.
Yeah, London are basically playing the how many players can we sit down and still win game, aren't they? Almost like they're on like a little spread bet on it or something. Yeah, I think Sheffield were probably a little bit comfortable having won 2 home games so well, and they never really got to grips with London's system. Olaseni basically carried them, and Olaseni was, they couldn't guard Olaseni. And the movement of London and their screen roll and the ball reversal was really good. A little bit disappointed by Sheffield. They were flat. I thought they were flat the whole game.
Yeah, great.
And as I say, that can come when you win a couple of games and you're feeling good about yourself. Momentum's a horrendous thing. Horrendous thing. Losing momentum is, aka the spiral, happens. Winning momentum, unless you're London and you're a massively, stacked team, all the winning does is it makes it more likely that you're not going to be entirely focused on winning the next game. And focus is so important. So yeah, also, I think London will have more difficulties with the less systematic teams. The teams that are just going to go up and down and go at them, like Newcastle did, with kind of the guards just basically going up and down at them and attacking them all the time. Whereas Sheffield very systematic, and moving the basketball, trying to get the ball inside at times, and making sure they get the best shot, all of that stuff, and then playing defense at the end of the far end. They couldn't defend London, unfortunately. And if they can't defend London, that's a problem. That's a problem for Sheffield because they ain't going to outscore them.
No, Stewart had a little cameo off the bench, but London another 10-0 run, and they're 26-44 and never looked like coming back after that.
No, and obviously you've got Matt Morgan, who just when it got close near the end, he made a couple of threes. I think he had 9 points in a minute and a half. If there's any doubt, then that was the game.
Yeah. Nichols 11 points, but 3 of 11 shooting. Ramsey, Pipkins, Cook, Allen all 10. Connor Morgan 7 of 10, 19.6 rebounds. Olaseni, most of his work done in the first half, 18 points and 7 rebounds, and Matt Morgan just put it away at the end. 17 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on a quiet.
Yeah, and Connor Morgan is a stretch 5, is a bit scary. He doesn't, because he's been playing the 4, but as a 5, he's been guarded by even bigger guys. He's like Skylar White, but a higher level Skylar White, in relation to his pick and pop ability and that type of stuff. So, whilst you think, they miss Sharma and all those things, you have to play big minutes. I'd settle for Connor Morgan could be my starting 5 any day in the BBL. This was the game whereby you missed a ton of stuff on the camera work. Sorry, frustrated me.
Apologies. I did get an answer to your question on Twitter, by the way, about players on the bench who are not.
Oh yeah, it was a good one. Yeah, because Sam Decker was, as somebody who once got a technical at Cheshire from Kate Unsworth for flexing my knees in an upward motion. And when I was a second person, allegedly I stood up a bit. I think I raised my shoulders a bit to my foot. Seeing Sam Decker kind of, tiptoe around the edge of the advertisements while the game's in play, with a coat on the bench, and having the referees ignore him because clearly he's Sam Decker. I can't think any of the reason why they would have ignored him. Or maybe it was befuddling to me. I just I don't.
So the answer to your question is every league has its own set number of people who are allowed to sit on the bench area. It's usually related to the chairs, sort of thing. And my assumption looking at that was that it was underneath the number, but I don't know what the number is. But my assumption is it was underneath the number.
They're on the bench, and they're on the bench, and they're standing up, and they're arguing with the refs.
Then they can be technical or DQ'd just like anybody else who's on the bench.
There wasn't as much as a warning in this game, and I'm not sure what was going on with that. So if one of the refs wants to text me and tell me why the rule doesn't apply, or if that rule doesn't apply anymore for anybody, or whether it's just
it does apply. It's just the referees chose not to. Maybe what he said wasn't tech worthy.
No matter what he said, he's on his feet. The coach is on his feet. I had the whole season of having to jump over an advertising hoarding every time Flanoy decided to stand up.
Yeah.
to make sure that they didn't catch us with two standing up at the same time.
Yeah.
Apparently, that was the most serious sin in the history of the world. You can't have people in street clothes who aren't on a sheet standing up on the bench, and you certainly can't have them moving towards the court. And at one point, at the end of the first half, he was nearly on the court before the club was finished. You can't have that. And I don't care who he is, and I don't know if it was a bit of I don't know if it was starstruck, but I can't see any other reason for it. And the crazy thing is, at home, and it might be because there's no seats on the baseline, and I get that, because at home there's a baseline.
Yeah.
I don't know, and to be honest,
the other thing is, at home they will have more like just people who are other people within, and there is a limit of them.
And I don't care about them being sat on the bench, and I don't care about players standing up on the bench to celebrate stuff and to cheer for their mates and all that. So that's fine by me. I got no problem with it. I think the refs need to be concentrating on what's on the court, not what's on there. But the minute that you get an interaction with the ref, or you're waving your finger, or you stood up and you're not the coach, that's automatic. And they didn't even get a warning. So yeah, not good.
So let's come to Saturday. Surrey Scorchers 98, Manchester Giants 72. Woohoo for Scorchers. They're off the board, or on the board even, off the mark.
I think before we get to that, let's just call this schedule Saturday, shall we?
Yeah.
Because we'll cover both games in on this particular little rant in the same way. The scheduling this season has been utterly farcical. Utterly farcical. I know the fixtures didn't come out to the 16th of August. I have no idea what they were doing in the 2 months beforehand, because if it took 2 months to come up with this stuff, it's beyond any form of cognition that I've got. We have a situation where Manchester are playing their fourth game in 7 days. 3 of those games have come since Surrey played their last game. Right? That is on any basis. Where it's on any basis suboptimal. It's rubbish. It gives them no shot. I'm sorry, it gives them no shot. Right? You then have
Newcastle.
Yeah, Bristol and Newcastle. And just for those who don't know, the league rule is that you can play a game the night afterwards away from home if the venue is within 300 miles. Right? And Bristol apparently to Newcastle is 298 miles. And I know Newcastle complained about that game, and it was allowed to play. Now, just on that, excuse me for 1 second.
Oh, drama! He's run off. For those listening on the podcast, he's run off. He's got his phone. Here he is.
Yeah, I got my phone. I got a text last night from somebody I'm not going to name because it wouldn't be fair, because I didn't tell him I was going to mention this. But who is a medical professional at a relatively high-level sporting institution in the northeast. Right, who's just got into basketball because his son's playing in the Central Venue League. And the text I got went as follows. Again, for the uninitiated, can you explain how the league allows teams, i.e. Eagles, to play back-to-back this weekend and travel over 300 miles? Well, it wasn't, it was 298, with tip-off less than 23 hours after the previous game. It wasn't, it was 24 and a half. Virtually impossible for a professional sportsman to perform, and almost certain guarantee loss. I believe Plymouth also had similar a couple of weeks ago. So I clarified about the 300 miles. And then I get another response is, what advantage is it to the league, though, for the Eagles to do this? Surely no difference to anyone if it's Sunday at the very least. Is the whole thing just set up to support Lions in Europe? I'm sure I'd bring that up, but anyway, right? So I said, well, it's to do with venue availability. You need to space out the games for TV. And this is the bit that, or generally incompetence as opposed to a conspiracy. It's generally always incompetence. And the response, this is from, as I say, a high-level medical professional in quite a substantial sporting institution in the city in which I live.
There's only one of them, isn't there?
Answer: incompetence quite staggering. Then, given the money now being put into the league and the attempts to commercialise. And this is the reason I'm reading this out. The last line. With any professional sport, the players are the most important part of the product and have to be looked after as a priority. Nail on head. That's not my words. And because it's the Eagles, obviously, I can be seen to be twisting, because it does happen to other teams as well. But against the background of a situation whereby they've already actually, firstly, the Manchester thing, nuts. 4 games in that time, and Surrey played 1 game or no games. Newcastle have already played in Bristol this year. It's not like this game needed to be ratcheted in 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. against the background of Caledonia playing Sheffield this week, after Sheffield played Caledonia last week. Plymouth playing Bristol 3 times within the first 4 weeks. I see Leicester playing Surrey at home again. That'll be a good one for the fans. They only saw it like 2 weeks ago. Next week. And on top of that, Plymouth are playing Sheffield at home on Wednesday, who played at Sheffield, at Plymouth 3 weeks ago. What is going on? What are they trying to accomplish? What logic is there? Can there be? Did nobody just look at this and think, this is not? I mean, the reason it's even worse is because the fact that all of these games are together means that we're going to have exactly the same later on in the season when teams that haven't played each other play each other 3 times in 3 weeks. And the coaches hate it. It's a crap product for the fans. It's we're now, I think, 0-5 or 0-6 in back-to-back teams. So it competitively imbalances the league. And to be honest, the advantage of the Bristol Newcastle one is that it really gives me something to get my teeth into in relation to the sheer lunacy of it, because we'd never done that before. I can't remember doing that before. You'd probably find a stat where we did. But
I don't remember. I mean, more often than not in recent years, you've played Bristol and Plymouth on a weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was always, we're not going to London, Surrey, Bristol, or Plymouth back to back. That's it. Anywhere else, you get on with it because that's the way it is. But anything, because we're not.
I haven't done the maths on it, but it feels like there are more back to backs, because back to backs used to be a much bigger thing when everybody but Newcastle played on a Saturday. And Cheshire played on a Sunday, and everybody else played on a Saturday. So if you were a Saturday team, you almost certainly played Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday.
Well, here's
and then because of that, teams moved to Friday so that they got at least a day off in between. And that's
because you could sell tickets. But here's the thing about it: the schedule imbalance, right? So we've got this brave new world, whereby all these games are spaced out, which means that all the same people get to watch YouTube, which means the YouTube numbers go up because they're not being spread across 4 games being played at the same time. Okay. The league has split them into basically 8 slots from what I can see. Thursday night, 2 on Friday night, 7:30, 7:45, 2 on Saturday, 5 and 8, and then 3 o'clock, 4:30, and 6 o'clock on a Sunday. That's 8 slots. That's a problem. Why is that a problem? You've got 10 teams. You've got 8 slots. That means...
Although the Sunday middle game is not always there. And sometimes there's only 1 game on a Saturday.
Exactly. So I'm saying the maximum of 8 slots.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see anything to suggest that there's going to be any other, because they want to spread them out for YouTube, for TV. Okay. And we all said, yeah, fantastic. We can watch them all. But what's the knock-on effect of all of that? The knock-on effect of all of that is that you are always going to get substantial schedule imbalances, with the games being spread Thursday through Sunday, with the challenges that they have, and with the fact that you don't, by definition, you got maximum 8 games, maybe 6, maybe 7, maybe 8. Some teams are playing twice, and some teams are playing once. Now, that's always happened. Yeah, and I get that. But when that happens 2 weeks in a row, and it happened to Manchester this time, and I'm sure it happened to Surrey later on, so it will, quote marks, balance itself out. It doesn't necessarily lead to over the course of a season, a competitive imbalance, unless you're London and you somehow manage to avoid all these back-to-backs. But what it does lead to is a lot of rubbish games, a lot of predetermined games. And I know, from a professional perspective, well, why are games predetermined? Every team should be ready to win. Okay. But you tell me that, coming off the court at, 10:05 on Friday night, that Malcolm Delpeche, who was a professional athlete, 6'9", Darius Defoe, 6'7", Will Neighbour, 6'11", nobody didn't play much. And professional athletes need to do their rehab, need to get into their physical state to make sure that they're recovered properly, their recovery time, that they've got to be on the bus at 10 o'clock the next morning to drive 7 hours. Oh, it is 7 hours, it's 6 hours, but you've got to do stops for the bus driver. So it's 7 hours, basically. It's 300 miles, and it also happens to be in the course of the worst storm we've had this year. And you're going to tell me that that's good for your product? And you're going to tell me that that game could not have been moved to later on in the year? It's just, that is nonsense. What we have at this point in time, and we've got, and I've just, with the timeouts and all that stuff as well, TV timeouts, which I understand now, by the way, I may as well get onto it now whilst the rant is going on, that if a coach calls a timeout after the 5-minute mark, the timeout is taken, but it doesn't count against the coach.
That makes sense.
Well, it just means that every time the opposition score a basket at the 4-minute 58 mark, you call a timeout, game stops, and you get a free timeout.
Yeah, I ain't got a problem with that.
I have.
Oh,
I mean, how many timeouts to coach? How many coaches timeouts do we need to have in a game?
well, yeah, but that's
Well,
my take is if you need the time, if you need to stop, otherwise, where are you going to do it? I don't know.
You're going to stop the game at the first natural stoppage point. You already managed to.
But if a coach wants to call the timeout at 4:58,
that's fine. But why? That should count as one of his timeouts. But why? You know, we're just. And this isn't the reason why games are finishing after 10 o'clock. You know, and I can't, and I don't understand why if a coach calls a timeout, if they have a media timeout, fine, have the media timeout, and then let the coach take the timeout afterwards. Or, it just, I can't see why it should not be called against the coach who calls it. The coach is calling it for a tactical reason. And I can't see anything in any rules which would suggest that a coach calling a timeout to create a stoppage in a game for a timeout which then does not get counted against him is anything other than just manipulating the rules of the game. So I'm not a fan. So I just think at this point in time, what we're in is a situation where we have the law of unintentional consequences, which is kicked in with all the fantastic new ideas which hadn't been properly thought through, which are impacting the product. And it's a slippery slope, and it's a slope which drops down slowly and slowly and slowly until eventually we don't realize it's happening. But I see it because I've been around it for so long as a fan. I'm frustrated about it as a coach because I think we're 3 steps away from having the golden buzzer. I don't like the idea that you've got the TV people telling the table when to blow the hooter for a timeout.
Come on now, that's been going on for years. Just because we haven't done it, I had somebody on Twitter going, "Oh, it's great watching the Euro Cup because they don't have TV timeouts." Yes, they do.
They do.
Yes, they do. At the midpoint of the third quarter, they have a media timeout. You just know.
And I bitched about it, yeah.
No. But my point is, they've existed for years and years and years.
Yeah,
everywhere.
I get that. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is if there's not a natural stoppage in play, the play stopping. I have a problem with that. But that's changing. That's changing the flow of the game. That's changing the flow of the game. That's using it for tactical advantage.
Okay, so we can debate over whether if Coach A calls a timeout at 4:58 and it goes as a media timeout, but it counts against him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not really fussed either way. Is the answer?
Okay, right, good. Good. I'm glad about that. Then, right, let's move.
Let's move on. So, Surrey with an early 12-2 run to lead 15-2. Cooper hitting threes, Robinson hitting threes, Lawrence getting to the rim, Surrey out to 37-18 after 13 minutes.
Yeah, and game over. To be fair, Manchester. I thought the Manchester coach overreacted to the Thursday night because unless they're injured, of course. But he started Nick Lewis at the point, and I don't think that was a good move. Harris came off the bench. Lawton came off the bench. I think those 2 guys have to start. I thought they'd done really quite well with Bossier starting and Lewis coming off the bench to provide a punch. But I think Lewis never got going as a starting point guard. It's not something he's ever done before. And Surrey made a ton of shots. And to be fair, Surrey were shooting the ball over a small team, and they were able to get good shots. And shout out for Mohammed as well because he struggled. And I was delighted to see that because he struggled, but he seems to play the right way, and he made some plays, and you could see him growing confidence. He made some shots, so I was chuffed for that. But yeah, Surrey were just.
We were all cynically waiting for the implosion, but then Josh Steele hit 3 threes at the start of the third quarter, and it was done.
Manchester were gassed.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, they're gassed. It's you can't. No, you just can't draw this. If you can't draw the same lessons, the fans don't see it because fans see what's in front of them. But they're gassed. Their schedule's been crazy.
Robinson.
If Surrey's schedule is crazy, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Robinson, 23 points, 8 of 11, shooting 5 of 7 from 3. Mohammed, 16 points and 7 rebounds. 4 of 9 threes for Cooper for 14. Sorry, 20 of 40 from 3-point range, which is the 3rd most equal since 2008.
Robinson, I mean, Manchester's best defense would have been, to block the road for a bit longer, I think.
Yeah.
They did, 3 miles outside the gym, they might have got a stop.
Stampley 14 and 6. McNeil 5 of 7 shooting for 12 points. Anderson 10. Bristol Flyers 97. Newcastle Eagles 83. No rough Thomas Edwards. We've already sort of touched on this. RGB scoring well early on, home side in front. McGill carried on where he left off. He's played well in the last week.
So everybody's now thinking, oh, why is he whinging about travel? Well, McGill played well because McGill was in a rhythm. Yeah. He was shooting the ball well. It's one thing to shoot. It's one thing to be a shooter. If you're a shooter and you've had 31 the night before, you want to play the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day because you're in a rhythm. Okay. What happened was in this game, two things. Bristol won the boards 54-28. I mean, if you look at the numbers the last time they played, wasn't close to that. That's because of Bristol's emphasis on it and because of Newcastle's de-emphasis and or fatigue on it. That's the reality. They're the sharp plays that matter. But the other thing is just Rob talked about it a little bit in the game on his commentary, and he was absolutely spot on. It's not just about the physicality of the legs and things like that. It's about the preparation. Okay. So Newcastle play at London on Monday night, which means they get back home about 6 o'clock on Tuesday morning. Right. That means Tuesday is gone. From any form of, there might be a little bit of recovery in the health club or whatever, but that's gone. You can't coach those guys on Tuesday when they've been on the bus 18 hours and played an overtime game. You can't put them in the practice gym. You can't put them. You're asking for trouble. That gives them 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, to get ready. And those 2 days have to be to get ready for Leicester. When do you get ready for Bristol? You don't. Now, when we used to do it, and we had games Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday. And we never played a Monday night game. It never happened. So if you played Saturday or Sunday the week before, Monday or Tuesday would all be about watching video of the team at the far end, the Saturday team or the Sunday team. So you could plant some stuff in the players' heads about what we were going to be coming up to on Saturday and Sunday, on Saturday or Sunday. And then on Wednesday, you would turn to the team you were playing on the Friday. But when that game finished, they had some memory, they had something in them in relation to what was coming on the Sunday, yeah? No chance, nothing. So, and you say, what does preparation matter? Well, if preparation didn't matter, no one would do it. You know, you do it because, you know, coaches are professional and it comes down to the quality of the product, all that stuff. So they're the two things that happened. Bristol, I think, played pretty well. Ultimately, the difference in the game, to be fair, was Corey Samuels. He came in beginning of the third quarter and made
the interesting thing on that is I don't know why Andreas brought Lucas back into the game with 2.5 minutes to go from halftime on 3 fouls because nobody else was in foul trouble. He only had 2 points. I think he was the only negative on the plus minus. So it wasn't like he was playing really well. He picked up his fourth.
But he's your guy.
Yeah.
No,
for 2.5 minutes, I'd have saved him to. But he picks up his 4th foul with 1.5 minutes to go in the first half, which means Samuel starts the second half and he hits 2 threes in a row and flies up to double figures, and that was
I mean, you're talking to somebody who got Charles Smith fouled out in the first half of one game, you know. So you know, so I'm on Andreas' side on that one. You know, if he's your player, he's got to learn to play with fouls. You know, put him in there. And plus, on top of that, what's the worst thing that happens? You've got another guy can come in. You know, Samuels comes in and gets a chance to play. You know, is that a bad situation? Particularly, you know, I mean, at times, you know, it's next man up mentality, and he made the shots he needs to make to become a next level point guard. At the moment, he's a developing point guard. If he wants to be anything close to a starting point guard, he has to be able to shoot that ball and regularly and make that shot consistently, and he did. And I hope that made the difference. And Newcastle just couldn't get a rebound, unfortunately, and that results in kick out of threes. Offensively, Bristol's defense wasn't great. McGill obviously went off again. You know, and they put some pressure on Bristol, but you know, Delpeche hardly touched the basketball. You know, they've got and Green went from being all hell and fury to all smiles and chuckles. You know, and that type, you know, can't be smiling. You know, he's smiling and chuckling with Raoul Graham. Raoul Graham had outplayed him in this game. In 5 minutes to go in the game, they're down 20. He's having a chuckle with him. You know, that's also wrong. You know, that's not the mentality you have to have.
Orlison 11 of 19 for 27 points. Green 19 points and 17 rebounds. Graham Bell 16 points and 11 rebounds. Those two had 17 offensive rebounds between them.
That's the game.
54-28 on the boards, as you say, and 27 second chance points. McGill 5 of 12 from 3 for 36 points. Johnson 17, Whitfield 11. Let's come to Sunday, and obviously I was commentating the middle game, so I managed to watch the first roughly 3/4 or so of the Caledonia game, and I had the Cheshire Plymouth game on listening basically on the way home. So I didn't really see it.
No.
Caledonia 87, Sheffield 83 after overtime. Gladiators with some early threes are out to 18-12 and then looking good in the early stages.
Yeah, the Pariser came out, made some shots early. Sheffield have this thing on the road whereby, they are slow starters on the road. In relation to scoring the ball, probably play a little bit slower than they want to. And Caledonia, actually, I thought for the first time, for the first 3/4, I thought that was probably the best I've seen them play, because Sheffield are still good. And Sheffield, now of course, Sheffield beat them by 25 last week. So it's your archetypal baby. I'll bounce back, whatever it is. I think they play again in 3 weeks' time. And so you have that. And so you're expecting Caledonia to come out. But I just thought that they looked a bit sharper in their movements and a little bit quicker almost in the decision. And that team is going to have to be really quick in its decision making, because it's not that quick in relation to foot speed. But that's obviously the way Gareth wants them to play. And so for 3/4, I thought they were pretty good with that.
So in the third quarter, Jovic and Whelan hit threes. They're out to 55-44. That was basically the point at which I stopped watching. And I'm obviously doing the other game, and I had a quick look at the score with 3 minutes to go, and it was still 10 points. So when the producer just said in my ear, by the way, the other game's gone to overtime, I was like, what the hell happened in the last 3 minutes? Looks like Pipkins and Ramsey hit some threes. Sheffield finished the game with a 13-2 run. So
yeah, Pipkins and Ramsey turned up, to be fair, and what you find is when you're quite egalitarian team like Sheffield are, that game against London, no one had more than 11 points.
Yeah,
when you're quite an egalitarian team. Sometimes you can get a bit lost in that if no one's taking enough shots to be the person who's to blame or to win the game, And I think Pipkins and Ramsey, to a certain degree, got a bit fed up with that, particularly Ramsey, to be fair. Ramsey really played well in the fourth quarter. He made shots. He led them. He was active. And also Caledonia, Gareth, I don't know if it's Europe managing minutes, but Dubose was sat down, and I suppose for about the 7-minute mark. And that's fine, because you said, well, they're still up by 10 with 3 minutes to go. But, it's a little bit like playing with your food. I want Dubose in the game. He'd only played 20 minutes. Jovic played really well in the third quarter, but he struggled near the end of the game. And he is the main guy they can go to get a bucket when they really need one, to both. And he wasn't there. And he didn't come back in until Pipkins made a three, Ramsey made a three, Pipkins made another three. And suddenly it's a 3-point game. Sheffield have got a shot, and now it's all on you, Ian. It's a different
So he got 2 free throws. I saw the time. I never believe on the Statcast.
Yeah.
It's how long it said, 20 something seconds. I can't believe
No, it was less than that. Basically, what happened was they were Sheffield got it back to 3, and there was 5-second differential shot clock. 29 seconds they got the ball, and they chose not to foul, which I thought was brave, because I always think if you're down 2, you don't foul. But if you're up down 3, then you're relying on them missing and you getting up the court with less than 5 seconds to get a 3-point shot, right? Which is a bit of a, I think at that point in time, you'd quite like to extend the game as much as you can, maybe trade 2s for 3s, that type of thing. But they chose not to foul, and Dubose got the ball and he penetrated and he got fouled, and there's about 9 seconds left at that point, 8 seconds left, and he missed both, and they're up 3, he missed both. Now, what then happens is Allen dribbles down the court off the rebound, and somebody committed a very smart foul. Can't think of it. It might have been Paliza. There was somebody at the halfway line committed a take foul, basically, but not an obvious foul, so not an unsportsmanlike, to put them on the line for 2 shots. So 5 seconds to go, Sheffield's down. No, this is the end of overtime. I'm talking rubbish.
Yeah.
My head's absolutely.
I've got Dubose making 2 free throws and then Pipkins hitting a 3.
Yeah, my fault. Forget all that, guys.
Yeah,
Rewind.
yeah,
Right. Okay. How much can you trust the rest of this rubbish? If
yeah.
I
Well,
that
it
right.
is a good
Right.
question.
Okay. No. What? Yeah. What happened was that's right. DeBose made that, so they're up 3, and then Routinho makes an unbelievable play because what happens is Ramsey has Moore on him on a switch, and they run a screen, and Moore and Dubose get caught on Ramsey on the ball, and Ramsey throws it across to Nichols, who's open, but Paliza rotates out to him. In the meantime, as soon as he sees 2 on the ball, Routinho makes a V cut from the far wing, where Pipkin's in the corner. He V cuts and screens Pipkin's man. Pipkins comes up high, gets the ball reversal from Nichols, and is absolutely wide open. Makes the 3. And then on the buzzer, and that was an unbelievable read by Routinho. Won't get a stat sheet mark for it or anything like that, but he set a great screen to get Pipkins open. Pipkins had been making shots. That tied the game. Then on the buzzer, they didn't really get anything particularly good, actually. I think Dubose had a fade away.
Yeah, DeBose 2-point jump shot missed is what I've just read
fade
here.
away.
So
Good defense.
look, the same sort of thing in overtime. Paliza pushed them out to 8 points with a minute to go, and Sheffield got it down to 2.
Yeah,
Is there any chance?
Caledonia tried to lose this game twice. Once in the last 3 minutes and once in the last few minutes of overtime. Yeah, Paliza made a couple of shots at the beginning, which is, he was ready to play. The crowd was full, which was great. And Sheffield looked like they're out on their feet. Ramsey got injured. He came off about a minute and a half to go in overtime. Didn't look serious, but he walked straight off, so he knew he'd done something. And then Caledonia basically, as I say, they struggled again. And this is what happened. They're up 3. DeBose misses 2 foul shots. There's a foul taken at the halfway line. Allen's on the line with 5 seconds. Onwas took the foul, my fault. Yeah. Allen's on the line with 5 seconds to go. He misses the first. Speculation that he would miss the second deliberately, but he made it, which I think at that point I would probably have missed and hope for a tip out for a 3, to be honest. Yeah. It's, you can go either way, but it's only 5 seconds. You haven't got a timeout left to advance the ball. So I think he's a rookie, so he probably doesn't know what he's doing anyway, because he's a rookie. He'd not been in that situation much. And he didn't play great in this game. Alan was only in the game because Ramsey had hurt himself. And then Caledonia advanced the ball and get fouled.
Routinho fouls Paliza, who makes 2 free throws.
Paliza makes 2 foul shots, and that's the game. Yeah.
So apparently Sheffield have lost the first game at all 4 west of Scotland venues. I'm sure you can guess who sent me that interesting geographical nugget. Paliza 20
through tornadoes.
I'm assuming they were all against Glasgow, Scottish.
Yeah, Kelvin Hall, Greyhead, Emirates, and
this. That would be my assumption. Yes.
Yeah.
Paliza 23 points to both, 12 Whelan, 12 39% field goal shooting, 7 of 24 for 3, but they win the game. Ramsey 20 points and 5 rebounds, Pipkin 17, Nichols 16 for Sheffield. So London 82, Surrey 70. No Olufeni, no Matt Morgan, Sharma, Taylor. Lawrence was a DMP. We didn't find out why, and obviously Hunt is out. This was a weird old game because Grantham hit a couple of threes early on. London just sort of edged away, and they got to about 12 and then sort of stopped there, and it never quite looked like they were going to make it.
Yeah, I watched it on fast forward, to be honest. It was just a bit kind of meh. Obviously, Surrey's on the back of the back-to-back. And without Lawrence, that's a real difficulty for them. Obviously, it's not easy for Robinson as well. Coming off 2 games in 2 days, and they didn't. Unfortunately, they played okay. Sorry, they made enough shots to stay close. Cooper is a gunner, and people are going to have to be aware of him. But they're just outsized, and they're just a little bit out executed, I thought, but certainly outsized. If Conor Morgan, is the biggest guy on the court. And Conor Morgan is basically playing as a 4 in his whole career. And he's the biggest guy in the court. And and Surrey don't really have that much in the way of athleticism outside of Wang, and he's been very up and down. It was difficult to see how they were ever going to make a run on it, to be honest. So,
as you say, Cooper a couple of flurry of threes in the third quarter, but they never got it under 10. Morgan 17 points and 8 rebounds. Caboza 15 points and 7 rebounds. Decker 5 of 8, 14 minutes, 13 points.
yeah.
And again, 44% field goal, 36% free three, so not great. Gooden 15, Cooper 4 of 7 for 12 points, Robinson 11. They were 11 of 34 for 2 and 12 of 36 for 3.
Yeah, I think the aim with Garden Surrey is going to be to keep them off the 3-point line. I really do. When you got Robinson and Lawrence and Gooden can shoot and Cooper can shoot, I think you don't want those 4 guys getting up multiple 3-point shots in a game. Word for London, probably Solowade. Solowade goes under the radar so much. He plays consistently every game. He's not one of these guys who's being rested and sitting out. He just does his job. He doesn't make mistakes. He's become a far better standstill shooter. He really does impress me.
Cheshire Phoenix 89, Plymouth City Patriots 77. Atwood 5 points. Plymouth got the first 9 points. Knicks quickly closed it to 10-11. Plymouth then a 9-1 run to go in front, but Kristen had 10 in a 15-2 response, back and forth first half.
Yeah, Plymouth started quite well. Cheshire started like they'd won too many games and they thought they were going to win, and Ben sat 3 of them down after 2.5 minutes. And Kristen came in and made 2 threes. Okay, you're not going to play. You guys ain't going to play. I'm going to play. I'm going to use his minutes. Which is great. Which is what you want to see from a rookie. It comes off absolutely ready to play. You just felt that Plymouth had insufficient, and obviously they're an American down. Noble's gone home, but just insufficient kind of athleticism to play the way they wanted to play. They're not that spaced. They're a bit herky-jerky. Without Joe Hart, I think they'd be all over the place because Joe's the only one who spaces them out and cuts and moves them into the right place. Atwood kind of plays 15 to 20 feet. He doesn't really space the 3-point line. Wiley's kind of the same. DeAndre Johnson only played 13 minutes in this game, and he's the shooter amongst them. And Taylor Johnson really struggled. And Taylor Johnson isn't what you'd call a pure shooter. He's a kind of scorer. He's a bit of quicksilver. So they have to play fast, but they don't necessarily play overly spaced and easy. And the problem is that at each position, Cheshire were longer. So Kristen, Holden, AJ Stevens, Maceo Jack all had a couple of inches and athleticism on the guys who were playing that spot for Plymouth. And I thought that wore them down as the game went on, to the point whereby they got more. Cheshire didn't play particularly well, but they got more easy baskets than Plymouth did.
Cheshire up 10 just after half-time, but Dangakoda with 5 to cap a 12-2 run, tied it at 51-51. And then I heard Josh talking about a timeout, and they came out of it. Stevens and Christian pushed it back out to 7, and then there was a 6-0 run in the fourth quarter. Yeah.
Well, 3 quarters in a row, Ben called his timeout at 4 minutes 50, but it wasn't his timeout. So he's clearly aware of the way it works. Okay. They called the timeout on a made basket, which wouldn't otherwise have been a stoppage. So he stopped made basket for a timeout, which doesn't count as a timeout against him. Further destroying the flow of the game in the Forrester world, and resulting in the game finishing at the game taking over 2 hours in the Forrester world again. Anyway, hey, it's in the rules. That's the rules. You can do it. I'm astounded it's in the rules, but there you go. So we used that to kill any potential runs at that point. And I thought Plymouth made a couple of runs in the fourth quarter, and Taylor Johnson got going with about 5 minutes to go and made a 3 and then made a jump shot. And they got it back from about 17 to 10, or maybe to 7, I can't remember, maybe to 7. And they got absolutely, they got hosed on a call. There were 2 calls in this game. There was a 3-second call in the second quarter, where Atwood took the ball in the key and may have been in there for 3.01 seconds. before he passed
I
it.
did hear Josh's commentary on that. He was of that opinion as well.
I mean, it was just a nonsense call, just a ridiculous call. And that's right in front of PJ. So by the time we get to the fourth quarter, PJ was quietly simmering. And I've seen, PJ, he likes to have a word with refs. He's kind of, it's never demonstrative.
No.
It's always, but he's in there.
He talks a lot more than people think he talks.
He does talk a lot more than people think he does. That's his job, right? But he got to the point in this game, and we're now seeing all these close-ups whereby, he'd given up the talking. I think he was just simmering, right? And they'd come on a run. I think they were down 7 with about 3 minutes to go, and they've got Sheffield, they've got Cheshire, 2 seconds on the shot clock, and it's right in front of him. And Skylar White's trying to get a shot at the top of the key, and they've defended him brilliantly. And he fades away for about 27 feet, and Taylor Johnson's right up there, hands up, and is called for a foul on the elbow, on a shot which went long, which doesn't generally happen if you foul somebody on the elbow, and which the commentators actually thought must have been a line in space foul, but the ref clearly signaled on the elbow. Then he never touched him. And Skylar White wasn't complaining for a foul. And Taylor Johnson burst out laughing. And not bent over laughing, but he just laughed about it. The camera is on PJ, and PJ is just absolutely simmering. Because that was a defining play in the game, because they played great defense. They got a stop. They go the other end. They're down 5. They've got a shot. They're down 7. They've got a shot. And that Skylar White makes a shot, 10-point game, and that was it. They're not getting back. So they did get hosed on a couple of calls. They are one guy short. They're getting nothing from LVC Dusha at the minute, and that has to change if they're going to be successful. The lack of spacing is really hurting his playmaking. There's a lot of movement around, but it's a lot of guys going to their own spots. That's what it seems to me. I might be wrong, but the way I see it compared to other teams, it's a lot of guys trying to find their own spot, and they're all kind of competing for space a little bit. And Cheshire, and the problem is with Cheshire, they'll turn you over and they'll be back down the other end. And they were about 3 or 4 times. Holden, Jack, those guys are back down the other end. So Cheshire didn't play great, but they won. So good for them.
All that matters, isn't it? Shogard, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 7 of 11 shooting. Christian, 21 points, 8 of 10, and Jack 13. Taylor Johnson, 20.7 rebounds. Atwood, 17 points, 9 rebounds. Faulkner, 16 points, 9 assists. We've gone past 11 o'clock. I'll just quickly run through the table as we're enough games in now. London 10-0, top of the standings. Bristol currently in second, 6-3. Cheshire 5-3, 4-2 for the Gladiators. 4-3 Leicester, 4-5 Sheffield, 3-5 Newcastle. Manchester 2-6, Surrey 1-6, and Plymouth 1-7. There we go. We've got through it. We won't be this late next week, people, because we'll be on Monday, because I'm doing the double-header games next Sunday, and I won't be back in time.
What's next week? Rugby World Cup final. That'll work. It's all right.
So let's go to bed.
Absolutely.
We'll go there. I'll just quickly bang this out and then off to bed. But thank you very much for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week on Monday. For those, I should say at the beginning, because not everybody listens to the end, apparently.
I understand that, can you?
Shocking. But enjoy the basketball. Enjoy TJ Shorts against Matt Morgan. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. And we will see you all next week. Goodbye.
Hey, guys.